In today's tutorial, let's work on the baby's first cluster crochet hat. We have 4 sizes available in one pattern, and let's get started right after this. Welcome back to the Crochet Crowd as well as yarnspirations.com. I'm your host Mikey. Today we're going to work on some hats, and today we're going to be working on the one that is listed in the title of this video. This particular pattern comes in 4 different sizes, and let's review that first. We're going to have the preemie size of 3 to 4 pounds. We have the preemie size of 5 to 6 pounds. We also have newborn of 7 to 9 pounds and then up to 3 months. The project that we're doing today is listed in the title of this video. I'm going to take you through the ins and outs of this particular pattern, and then we're going to jump to the size that has been listed in the title of this video. So all 4 hat sizes are very similar in concept. The only difference is, other than they look different in sizing, is that there's a fundamental difference of rounds 3 and 4 between all of them. So a cluster is made up of 2 double crochets into the same stitch, and when we go to work on it, we're working on it like it's looking upside down, and you can see that there's 2 double crochets that make up one cluster, like so. Okay, and the next cluster just goes into a space in between. We're going to be explaining that a little bit more in a bit. So what's going to happen on rounds 3 and 4 is that 3 and 4 is increasing the number of clusters so that the hat diameter expands. So clearly when you're doing the preemie size here, and you can get up to 12 hats out of one yarn ball for the Caron Simply Soft, is that there's less clusters in the top part here so that it makes it a smaller diameter. So what's going to happen here is that we're going to take you through the ins and outs of this particular video. All of them start off the same way, rounds 1 and 2, and then this video is going to change then for rounds 3 and 4 in order to do it. Once you get the round 4 done, all of the rest of these hats turn exactly identical with just adding a cluster into each one of the spaces that is available to you, and then you just need a tape measure at the end, measure the distance that you have that's listed in the pattern, and just polish it off with a single crochet right at the very end. So this is a really kind of an interesting concept. I'm also going to explain you one more thing before we begin today's tutorial. To help me to help you in order to teach this effectively, I've created these diagrams that are just kind of made with pencil, and this, for example, is the 3 to 4 size here, and we can see that we start off identically, and I put in highlights here whenever there's an increase that go in between any of the clusters that you see. So if you notice it's sitting inside of a cluster, that's what we have. So I'm gonna provide this scan details, and this is 5 and 6 on the crochetcrowd.com underneath the particular sizing, and you can see that I've done them all in order to help me teach. But I'm going to tell you one more thing in order to really make it a lot more easier for me to teach, because I was just trying to think how not to confuse you, and it is all about the spaces and the double crochets. So let me just pull this up here. So whenever I refer to a between, it's going to be in between 2 double crochets that are together. So consider these as a cluster, like you should anyway. So whenever I say the stitch is in between, it's in between a cluster like this, and if I say it's in between a space, it's in between the space between 2 clusters. And so when we go to work on this, let me pull up the size here, and I have highlighted in pink here. So for example, what I would go here is I would say a cluster in the space because it appears in between 2, but the next one is in cluster in between, and you'll see that it's in between 2 of the double crochets, just like that. So I'm going to be saying that in this particular video in order to make it. So as I teach it, and for example, let me take up the smallest size because it's just going to be easier. When I go to start, I will say chain 3, double crochet into the same in between, and then I will say cluster in the next space, cluster in the next space, and then cluster in between, just like this. So if you could just follow it along, and we're gonna try to do it, and you'll see in the baby size that it's kind of really kind of unusual on how it's increasing, but we'll explain that when it comes to this particular size. So without further ado, let's jump to this particular tutorial and the size that we're talking about, and let's get started. In today's tutorial we're going to do the newborn size, and this is a relatively easy size. It's about a 12.5 inch diameter in order for a baby's head. You'll need a size G 4.5 millimeter crochet hook, also known as US 7, for this particular size. You can get approximately 7 hats out of one ball of Caron Simply Soft for this size. So let's work on the newborn size of this particular hat, and it's really quite easy. You have a diagram that's provided on the crochetcrowd.com. You can see here that there's increments, and where I've highlighted is that where these are going in between a cluster in order to grow. This is one of the easiest hats to work on for the newborn size because it grows consistently. You'll see that there's a common trait between them all. So what I'm going to be referring to is, if you see the highlighted, it's in between the clusters, and what I mean by that is that whenever we stick stitches in between to separate a cluster, that's in between, and when it's a space, it's in between two groups of a cluster, just like this. So do you see that? So this is in between the space, so this is a space, and the ones highlighted are in between the actual other cluster from the row below, or from the round below. So without further ado, let's get started on this. Let's grab up our yarn and let's create a slip knot for the hook. And let's begin to do this design next. So let's begin. We're going to start by chaining 3. Remember, the one on the hook never counts as 1. So 1, 2, and 3. And what we want to do is do 8 half double crochets in the starting chain. So come all the way back to the start, wrap the hook and going into the starting chain, and I want to put in a half double crochet, and I want to do that 8 times. So that was 1 and 2, 3. Okay, and I'm leaving that straggler down in 4 and 5, 6, 7, and 8. And what I want to do is join this to the beginning single or half double crochet that we started with. So if you can count back, if you're not sure where you should join, just count back. So start from the one right underneath the hook. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So just count back and you can figure that out. Go right into an actual stitch and just join it just like this. Let's begin round number 2. Round number 2 is very easy. We're just gonna chain up 3, 1, 2, and 3, coming to the same space that you just joined, and just do a double crochet. And you're making clusters here even though you may not identify it right away. So you're gonna chain 1 next, and then come into the next stitch and then put in 2 double crochets. So each cluster in this particular design is consisting of 2 double crochets into the same stitch. Chain 1, come into the next one, 2 double crochets. So you want to go all the way around in that same fashion, so you'll end up with 8 clusters going all the way around. Chain 1, come into the next one. The secret is to keep the same count going all the way around. All 4 of the hats start off identically with rounds 1 and 2 just being like this. It's rounds 3 and 4 that change the story for all of the hats going forward. Chain 1, okay, just continuing to go all the way around. If you're ever unsure, just count your groups of 2, and I will do that in just a moment just to verify. So I think I'm done here because the next stitch belongs to the next one. So you can just count the groups. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. That means I'm done. Chain 1 first, and then just join it to the top of the beginning chain 3 like this. And that concludes on how to do rounds 1 and 2. So now I'm ready to move on to the chart, and rounds 3 and 4 are different from all the other sizes that are available to you. This is the newborn size, and you can see that the increasing is pretty well consistent. So you have like a 1 in space in between, the next one is in between. So space between, space between. So this one is relatively easy to do without having to jog a lot of brain power to do it. Let's begin round number 3. So to begin this round we have to slip stitch in between the cluster. So just going right into the cluster, and we slip stitch and then chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and then double crochet into the same spot you're just in. So here's how we're going to work this particular pattern for round number 3. It's really easy. The next one is a space, so it's in between the 2 clusters, and you're going to do a cluster there that consists of 2 double crochets. Don't forget that. And then the next one is into a space. It's really quite easy. Now can I tell you something that's really quite easy with this particular pattern? For this particular size you just have to put a cluster in between each one of the double crochets, so you don't even have to worry about thinking if you're in between or you're in a space. It just all works out. and it just makes a lot of sense as you're going all the way around. So just put in a double crochet in between each of the double crochets that you see. Your goal at the end of this round is to have 16 clusters, and it just is quite easy to do that. Sometimes it's just easier to kind of look at what the pattern is. I would have never known that unless I drew out my diagram like I did in order to see that consistency going all the way around. So my goal at the end of this round is to have 16 clusters, which are when you really think about it, it's 32 double crochets, but they're working together in sets of 2 in order to make that happen. Okay, so I'm in between there. I'm looking at my diagram. It's in the space in between as well. So it's a space. So what I want to do is I want to count it and make sure there's 16, so it's all in groups of 2. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Once I'm satisfied, just join it to the top of the beginning chain 3. And let's move on to round number 4. So round number 4, we need to increase our rounds all the way so that we have 19 groups of clusters. Okay, so 19 clusters going all the way around for this size. So we're already at 16. That means that we have to somehow gain 13 or 3 more clusters in this. Let's just slip stitch to the in between of the first set. Okay, so it's in between, and chain up 3, 1, 2, 3, and double crochet into the same spot. So the next one is going to be in a space. So it's the next one's in the cluster, is in the space, and then the next one is in between. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. The next 5 clusters are going to be in spaces between the clusters. So it's just gonna be 5 in a row. So we've got 1, jump to the next space, which is over here. This is 2, jump to the next space. Right here is 3. The next space is 4. And the next space is 5. Now what we're gonna do now is going in between. So the next one is in between here. Okay, and do a cluster, and then the next 5 in a row will be again clusters in the spaces. So come right to the next space. Okay, so that was 1, the next space for 2, the next space for 3, next space for 4, next space for 5, next space. Okay, so the that was 5. So the next one is in between. Okay, and then the remainder, there should be 5 spaces left, so the remainder 5 should be all in spaces. So 1, go into the next space here for 2, next space for 3, next space for 4, and I want to count, and I got 1 more here, so I'm gonna go into the next space, the final one for the 5th. And I want to count and make sure that I have 19 of these clusters going all the way around, and remember they're working in sets of 2. It is, so and you're just going to just join it to the top of the beginning chain 3, and everything comes closed anyway. So what you want to do at this point is that each one of the rounds now start off identically to each other until you get to the height that you need. The height that you're looking for this particular size is 4.5 inches tall. So it'll be 4.5 inches from the top of the hat to the brim area, and as soon as you get that, then we're gonna polish it off with a single crochet. To begin these rounds, all you just have to do is slip stitch across into the first space, so it's in between the clusters, chain up 3 and then double crochet into the same space. So we're just gonna work in the spaces only with putting in clusters, and this will make the hat start to come around and look like a hat, and you're going to continue to do these same rounds working in between the spaces to make this work. So let me show you what to do when you get back all the way around. Once you've come all the way back around, you just join to the top of the beginning, chain 3, and then you begin another round. So to begin another round, you slip stitch over to the double crochet and into the space between the clusters, chain up 3 once again and double crochet into the same spot, and then just jump to the next space in between the next clusters and continue to do that. So remember, you are looking for 4.5 inches tall before doing the brim. So I'll leave that with you, and when I come back I'll have this hat move to that level, and then I'll show you how to do the brim. We're almost done at this point, so don't give up. We're almost there. So now I'm ready for the brim. I've gone a few more revolutions, and I'm looking for 4.5 inches tall between the top and to the brim. So I'm very, very close here. So now I'm ready to do the final. So there's only one round left, and it's single crochets going each double crochet all the way around. So we start off by chaining 1 and then just double crochet into each one of the, single crochet into each one of the double crochets going all the way around. So do that, and then I'm gonna show you how to fasten this off and hide in your tails without them never falling out. And so just 1 single crochet in each double crochet going all the way around. So I'm coming up all the way around, 1 single crochet into each double crochet, and then I'm just going to join it to the beginning single crochet. So this is how you fasten off. I'm just gonna trim my strand about 1 foot long, and I'm just gonna pull this strand through this loop. Okay, so now what I want to do, grab a darning needle. This is the best way to be able to hide in your loose ends without them ever falling out, especially if you're donating it to a family in need. Okay, and you're just gonna pull through. So if you put the hook in 3 times back and forth, it'll never fall out. So just going into the work, just gliding underneath. A good sharp darning needle is the best for this option. So go in once, go in the direction you just came from, but in a different path to get different sets of fibers. Staying underneath, don't ruin that brim by just going in the brim itself. You want the nice stitch work. So that was 2, and then coming back one more time in the other direction for 3. So the project can never stretch 3 different directions at the same time. So now you can safely cut this right down to the project. So you can barely see it like this, and now you just take the other straggler that you had on the inside. You can safely cut that out too. And this is the newborn size of 7 to 9 pounds, and it's a really kind of a cool idea, and now it's ready for the donation bin. So until next time, I'm Mikey on behalf of the Crochet Crowd. This is the Baby Clusters hat, and it's really quite fabulous and fun, and enjoy this new hat design. Till next time, it's Mikey. We'll see you. Bye-bye.